Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to Switch to Life, and today we're going to be reviewing one of Pixar's earliest movies, that of course being Monsters Inc. Now the main reason I'm doing this is because Monsters at Work is about to release its second season on Disney Plus starting on May 5th. And with that in mind, I'm having a bit of a Monsters Inc. marathon. I've already reviewed Monsters University, and today we will be reviewing Monsters Inc. And I gotta say that out of all the Pixar movies, this one might actually be my favorite. Now, obviously, since this film was made back in the year 2001, it might feel a bit aged, especially to people who see Monsters University first, but honestly, the animation was high quality for its time. Seriously, I can't imagine a single movie looking any better. I'm also a really big fan of the music, especially the soundtrack, and I'm a really big fan of the voice acting. But above all else, the thing that makes Pixar famous, the emotional tension that is involved in this story. I love it. I'm also a really big fan of the world building, and with that in mind, let's dive into the story. So, basically, the story starts by introducing us to the concept that monsters are having a bit of a power crisis, and the thing that powers their city is human screams, which is why there's monsters in your closets. They constantly travel to and from the monster world into the human world to scare little kids so that they can harness their screams to power their energy. And the best company that takes care of this is Monsters Incorporated, which are powered by the best scare team to ever live, James P. Sullivan and his door operator, Mike Wazowski. We also learn that they are really close to breaking the all-time scare record, but they're also close to being beaten by a rival team, Randall Boggs and his door operator, Fungus. Randall is the main villain of this movie. Anyway, the monsters have a successful day of collecting enough scream energy to power Monstropolis for another day. But unfortunately, Mike Wazowski forgot to do his paperwork before his date with Celia May. Sully says that he'll take care of it, and when he goes to fetch it, he discovers that there's an extra door in a side of a station that's powered on, but he doesn't know why it's there. Anyway, he checks inside the room and he sees that there's no monsters there, so he tries to turn it off, but he realizes that he accidentally let a kid out of the room. And the thing is, monsters, they're supposed to scare kids, but they're also afraid of kids. It turns out that, according to rumor, kids are toxic, and touching one of them will kill you in some way, shape, or form. Of course, this is actually false, but still, it's enough to inspire fear in Sully to the point where he literally can't scare Boo. So after catching the kid, he tries to take her back to her room, but unfortunately discovers that the door was left there by Randall Boggs, who tries to figure out why there's not a kid in that room, but in the process ends up putting Boo's door back into storage, which means that Sully can't take Boo home, at which point he needs to go find Mike at Harryhausen's, the restaurant where he is on a date with Celia, and thus he accidentally lets the kid out, and thus it's revealed that there's a human child lost in Monstropolis, which is kind of a panic situation because that means exposure to the human world, and far more importantly, a toxic kid that can kill any monster it touches. So anyway, Sully and Mike Wazowski hide the kid in their own home, and they discover a really interesting phenomenon. When the kid is happy, it kind of creates so much power that there's a power outage in all of Monstropolis. But, of course, they discover a way to get around this. The kid eventually falls asleep, at which point Sully ends up falling in love with the kid. And he realizes that he wants her to be safe and happy, and the best way to do that is to take her home. But that also means breaking her back into Monsters Inc., which unfortunately is having a CDA inspection due to the fact that Sully left the evidence that the child came from Monsters Inc. So Sully says that they need to find Boo's door, and Mike, he tries, but unfortunately, due to the fact that he didn't finish his paperwork, he can't get the door station, so he grabs a random door and says that that's Boo's door, but of course, Sully knows that that's not Boo's door because her door had flowers on it, at which point the kid actually manages to escape from them, and then, while they're searching, Randall discovers that Mike Wazowski and Sully are somehow involved in the missing kid, so Randall threatens Mike Wazowski to bring the missing kid to the door station during lunchtime when the scare floor will be empty. All of this while Sully is trying to find Boo, and he actually eventually finds her, so Mike brings Sully to the door station where Boo's door is, and unfortunately, he slips that Randall actually is the reason the door is there. And of course, Sully actually hesitates to put Boo back because he knows that Randall was up late doing some weird business, and he obviously wants something to do with the kid. But of course, Mike just thinks that Randall is trying to bring the kid home just so this panic attack can be over with. So he tries to prove that the room is safe, and it wasn't. We learn that Randall is involved in a plot where they kidnap children and hook them up to a machine called the Scream Extractor, which literally extracts the screams from children so that they can power up the city in heavy doses, but that also comes at major risk of the child, possibly even killing them. Now, the main reason that that's happening is due to the fact that children are getting harder and harder to scare due to the rise of television, which is actually a problem because if they can't scare kids, they can't power the city. Still, Randall hooks Mike Wazowski up to the machine, at which point he turns it on, but Sully manages to rescue Mike before his screams are extracted, at which point they try to tell the plot to Mr. Waternoose, the CEO of Monsters Incorporated, but unfortunately, Waternoose is actually involved in the plot in the fact that he actually started the whole thing. He may not have built the machine, but he came up with the idea that they should find new ways to make it so that kids can be scared and new ways to extract their screams. And the main reason that he does this is simply due to the fact that kids just aren't being scared anymore, and he's willing to do absolutely anything to keep this company afloat, even if it means kidnapping human children. So he takes Boo into custody, then banishes Mike and Sully into the Himalayas, where he previously banished the abominable Snow Yeti. And of course, Mike Wazowski is concerned with the fact that they no longer have a safe place to live, and they lost their jobs, and they had a good life, and now it's gone. And Sully, he's not concerned about any of that. He's just concerned about Boo's safety, at which point he rushes down to the human village so that he can find a way to the monster world, which comes at risk to himself. And this is when Pixar pulls at our heartstrings by breaking up this dynamic duo, because Mike, he's kind of selfish and he doesn't want to go out into the freezing cold to possibly die, unlike Sully, who at this point will do literally everything for Boo's safety. So Sully ends up getting to the human village, at which point he gets into the monster world, breaks into Randall's lab, and stops the Scream Extractor, effectively destroying the machine, and rescues Boo, at which point Randall tries to kill Sully so he can get the kid back, but thankfully manages to be thwarted by Mike Wazowski, who shows up out of the blue. So Mike and Sully try to return Boo to her door, but unfortunately when they call it, Randall is after them, so they grab onto a random door, send all doors to storage, at which point this begins a really awesome chase scene that was like really cool to watch. I loved it. All the while trying to get to Boo's door, but in the meantime trying to keep Boo away from Randall as the three of them travel across the world in various locations. At some point, Randall actually manages to grab Boo. He tries to kill Sully, at which point Boo steps up and starts thwacking Randall like there's no tomorrow. So she manages to find her courage just in time as Sully manages to capture Randall, at which point Mike and Sully send Randall into the human world where he's mistaken for an alligator and whacked on the head with a shovel. And then they destroy the door, which prevents Randall from getting back, at which point they manage to bring Boo home to her door, but unfortunately, without power, this means that they don't have a way to open the door to the human world for her. At which point the door is called by Mr. Waternoose and the CDA, who are trying to collect the child and arrest Mike and Sully for breaking into the human world, and thus leads to a chase where Mike distracts the CDA while Sully tries to bring Boo home, and while Sully tucks Boo into her bed, he's caught by Mr. Waternoose, who reveals why he's doing all of his crimes, at which point he tries to take Boo into custody, but it turns out to be a trick. And it turns out that this was all set up by Mike and Sully so that Mr. Waternoose would confess to his crimes on camera and the CDA would take him into custody. So Boo ends up being returned to the human world, and it's a really sad and also heartwarming goodbye from the two of them. At which point Boo's door is shredded, and due to this whole panic attack, Monsters Incorporated is at risk of shutting down, especially after its CEO was arrested. But Mike and Sully come up with the idea that laugh power is actually much more powerful than scare power. So Mike and Sully restart the factory and turn Monsters Inc. from being scare power to laugh power. And instead of trying to scare kids, they make them laugh. And thus they find a brand new way to solve the power crisis in Monstropolis. Now, of course, this is not an instantaneous fix, as they cover this topic in Monsters at Work. But essentially, the movie ends with Mike Wazowski doing one more favor for Sully, where he ends up finding all of the pieces of Boo's door, reassembling it, which, took a long, long time. And the movie ends with Sully and Boo being reunited. And I feel like they actually might bring this up again in Monsters at Work Season 2, as there just wasn't time for it back in Season 1. But I feel like they might actually make her important to 1 or 2 episodes of Season 2. Of course, I could be wrong. I guess we'll find out when I make my review in a couple weeks, when Monsters at Work Season 2 releases on Disney Plus on May 5th. With that in mind, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and far more importantly, I hope you enjoyed Monsters, Inc. Please make sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up to date to all things DreamWorks, as this is a mostly DreamWorks focused channel. But with that in mind, I hope you're all staying safe out there, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye-bye.
Yep. Oh, sorry, she didn't see that. What?